It's approximately 10:30 in the morning. I left my house at about 5 this morning. I'm somewhere between Wyoming and northern Colorado, I think. I'm headed to Oklahoma to pick up a Bobtail Propane tank for our place. I've been watching this propane tank for like 6 months, trying to decide if I really truly need it. And by having a 2,400 gallon propane tank, that legitimately gives us at least 2 years of propane, maybe even closer to 3 years. And I would love it if we didn't have to worry about what the price of propane was. I would love it if we didn't have to worry about getting it filled. Yeah, it's something I've wanted to do for quite a while. The issue has been over the last 6 months, the price of shipping has gotten so out of control that I've just kind of been sitting and waiting for a moment to go get it myself. So 17-hour drive, I'm 5 hours into it. I have an appointment tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to get it loaded on my trailer and literally just turn around and come right back. So we're gonna see how fast I can get to Oklahoma. Well, there it is. That's the tank that I came halfway across the country for. Now, if we can just get it loaded on my trailer in a way where it's not gonna move around and shake loose, because I got a long way to go to get it home, but that's exactly what I was hoping for. One of the things I have to figure out, the pump sits underneath this tank, but one of the things I have to figure out is how to get rid of all of the skirts and the steel around it without putting that tank in jeopardy. But I'm gonna cut all those off with a torch and put some skids or something underneath this to get this thing down a little bit lower to the ground. But this thing, like it sits, weighs about 4,000 pounds. So it's big, but it's not unbearably big. But it's not too big to move. The 1,100 gallon propane tank that I picked up a few years back seems to be a little more than a year's supply of propane for us, but because of how bad the road and the weather can be up here, I would like to be able to store more propane. I need to give a shout out to my new friend Jose that helped me get the propane tank loaded. But this tank is a 2,400 gallon bobtail tank that was used to deliver propane for many years. And because it had to meet DOT specs, these tanks are typically thicker than a standard residential propane tank. So they make great storage tanks if you can find them. Okay, I've got the bobtail tank loaded up, secured, strapped down, and I've got 1,200 miles between here and home. I'm obviously not going to do the trip home anywhere near as fast as I did here. I'm guessing it's going to take me a day and a half to get home, but here's a little food for thought. The office manager mentioned to me as I was leaving that all of a sudden, all of these Bobtail propane tanks that they have, and they don't have very many of them, but they have a few of them, and all of a sudden she said these Bobtail tanks that they've had for sale forever, people are calling on, and people are seriously interested in storing larger amounts of propane. I waited 6 months to buy this tank, mainly because I just couldn't decide if I was going to come out here and pick it up myself or pay to have it shipped back. But I do think it's interesting that all of a sudden people are looking for ways to store larger amounts of propane. And by the way, try to find a 1,000-gallon propane tank right now. If you can find one, they're probably every bit of $5 grand. But it seems like they're not even making 1,000-gallon tanks anymore. So anyway, I've got a lot of driving. I'm gonna have to regularly stop and check my straps to make sure everything's okay, but I'm looking forward to getting home with this. Who would have guessed I'm 15 miles from home and the most treacherous the road has gotten is right here, of course. I haven't even made it to our turnoff yet. This is still a highway. So since I've been gone the last couple days, there's been a good little storm, but it looks like the winds have been really bad. So there's some drifts and some fairly deep snow. So I'm gonna actually leave the propane tank down here at a friend's house, and I'm gonna have to make sure the road's passable before I try to haul that tank up there. So, but I made it home, thank heavens. So the new Caterpillar tires and rims that I bought for the Bobcat skid steer were perfect, but the tracks needed to come off. They were just a little bit too slick. I had quite a few messages about putting studs in those rubber tracks, but I simply chose to take them off. So I was gonna put the old tires and the chains on, but I can tell I've got way more traction with those tracks off. So I'm gonna run over to the other property with just the tires and see if that's enough to get me up in there and do the work I need to do. I've got to move a whole bunch of snow over there so I have room before I can bring that tank up here. So I'm gonna run over there real quick. As far as the new Bobtail propane tank is concerned, by having a 2,400 gallon tank versus an 1,100 gallon tank, I will ultimately sleep better at night because I will be less concerned about how we're going to get propane up here. And in light of this moment in time and what seems to be happening all around the world, I sleep better at night being as prepared as I can be for the things that I have control over. And this is one of those things. So even without the chains, the tires did fine. This tire is supposed to be on that corner is supposed to be on this corner, and that is not supposed to be there. Now I'm gonna run the truck up and down the road a couple times and push the snow drifts out of the way, and then I'm gonna bring the tank up here, see if I can get it up here. Okay, I am now gonna run down and hook up to that trailer and that tank and see if I can't get it up here. But part of my issue is the just simple momentum. I have to keep this thing moving, and I have to, yeah, the only way I'm getting it up to that new property up there is literally if I just keep the truck moving. So Cedar's gonna help me if I need it with the plow truck, but there's so little room up there on that pad that I'm gonna try and get it up there with no chains and just the tires that I have on the truck. So this should be interesting. Cedar's gonna drive the skid steer back for me. I'm gonna drive the plow truck and try and give us as much room as I can right here. Then I think I'm gonna go borrow the neighbor's backhoe that has a better lifting capacity, so I can safely get this thing set on some railroad ties. But Cedar's never driven the skid steer, so I gotta teach her how to drive the skid steer.
I've never driven it long distances.
Have you ever even been in it?
Yeah, I pulled you out when you got stuck over there.
Oh.
You forgot?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh my gosh.
I try and block those things out. I can tell you right now, 99% of the reason why we've had any success at all up here is simply because my wife is willing to jump in and do this kind of stuff when I need her help. She's never once complained. She's always been that way. She's always been willing to get her hands dirty and learn new things. And to me, that's the kind of person you got to be to live the way that we live. So she's a trooper. You're scaring me. Stop. Throttle back. You can sit there and wait if you want to. The little knob right there on the door. Okay. Push it all the way out, but you have to push it all the way out.
I feel like I'm at a Disneyland ride.
Your grandpa would be proud of you today. I don't know that your grandpa ever spent any time in a skid steer, but he drove every other piece of equipment.
Oh! Is that how the window gets broken?
No, that's how my middle finger gets smashed like that.
Uh-oh.
There's a pinch point right there between the handle and the door. Thank you.
Good
Okay.
thing there's a no smoking sign in there to remind you.
That was for you.
No smoking on the job.
I'm kind of trying to decide what to do. I want to get this tank sitting on at least 4 or 6 railroad ties to keep it up off the ground so I can work up underneath there safely. Not only do I have to cut all the skirting off around the whole thing, but I also have to remove the pumps underneath it. And there's a pump that's sticking down that's kind of keeping me from setting this the way that I want to set it. But it would be ideal if I could get it up high off the ground. It would be ideal if it was sitting on a stack of railroad ties. So I think I'm going to run over to the house, see if I can dig some railroad ties out of the snow and bring them over here. Somewhere under this pile of snow is about 2 dozen railroad ties that I was planning on using for fencing the new property. But at this moment, they're needed for that bobtail tank. The office manager that I'd been talking to for the last 6 months told me that all of the sudden she has had excess calls on the larger Bobtail propane tanks. According to the office manager, all of a sudden many people just like us were very interested in having the ability to store more propane. So I probably shouldn't have waited any longer than I did to get this propane tank because it likely would have sold. But if I choose to, I could sell our old propane tank for what this new one cost. So in the next few weeks, as the snow melts, I'm going to get this propane tank prepped and ready to be installed as our new propane tank. And I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to put this thing underground or not. Well, that actually went surprisingly well. I'm probably going to reposition that thing before I start working on it, but for now, it's fine like it is. I'm going to get a little bit more done on the shop before I start working on that, but I need to get all that stuff cut off that tank pretty quick.